Today we're going to be talking about daddy issues. Just kidding. Father's Day is just around the corner. I hope you've all purchased your Father's Day gifts already. I've compiled a list of some things you can do to help you feel warm and fuzzy and maybe make dad proud. Some activisty things to get into this Father's Day. I'm going to go over 2 different ways you can help.
One is through donations. The second is a petition to protect LGBT people from discrimination in adoption and foster care proceedings.
Your dad might be the best dad in the world, and you probably feel so lucky to have him. But imagine if you didn't have a dad. This is the reality for over 19 million children in America. They're growing up fatherless. And a huge number of kids in America, and especially Black and Latino kids in America, are growing up without their dads due to mass incarceration.
Have you ever thought about the effects that mass incarceration could have on the children of incarcerated parents?
For one thing, there's the obvious emotional and mental health issues that can arise from having a parent taken away from you. Things like anxiety and depression can evolve or worsen. Oftentimes, a parent who is incarcerated was the primary breadwinner for the family. So even if the other parent is still in the home and working, it's a much bigger financial burden for that one person to carry, especially if the family is low income already. The other issue is that a lot of kids are living in one-parent households, and so when one parent is incarcerated, they have to either live with a relative or they end up in the foster care system.
There are like 440,000 children in the foster care system in the US right now.
That is a lot of kids.
So I thought this Father's Day, we could pick an organization that helps to alleviate these burdens and helps to make the journey for these kids just a little bit easier.
I know some of you might be on the moral high ground right now thinking that people who end up in prison are there exactly because they deserve to. But I think we all can agree that the children of these parents did nothing wrong and they don't deserve to be suffering these consequences. The first organization is the Sesame Street Workshop, or Sesame Street in Communities. Of course, you've heard of Sesame Street. They tackle tough issues all the time. They have a whole section of resources dedicated to children whose parents have been incarcerated.
Videos for children. What is incarceration? I'm visiting a parent in prison.
It has resources for caregivers of these children to help the children and the caregiver cope with the situation that they're in. The Loveland Foundation that I mentioned in a previous video would be a great organization to donate to in honor of Father's Day for Black women and girls living without fathers. The Loveland Foundation's Therapy Fund for Black women and girls helps to make mental health care accessible. The incarceration of a parent is the perfect example of a time when a young Black girl might just need that therapy fund.
Scholarships.
I'm the first college graduate in my family, and I remember when I was going through the college application process, I felt a little alone and like I could have used some more guidance. Now imagine going through that while your parent is in prison. It just would make an already complicated, overwhelming process and make it even more difficult. I found a resource from Rutgers University compiling a list of scholarships for children with incarcerated parents. This is a great resource for finding out about these different scholarships, and then you could choose one to donate to. All of them are providing what I think is a really admirable and good service. You could make these donations in Dad's honor if he would be honored by that, and if he wouldn't be honored by it, then maybe you could make them in your name and use it as a segue to a difficult conversation that you've been meaning to have with your dad about issues of social justice and equity. They'll also provide another resource called the Child Welfare Information Gateway, which has a series of links for all different social services available to children of incarcerated parents. So the other thing that I want to talk about is adoption and foster care and discrimination. The administration has rolled back Obama-era protections for LGBT people wishing to adopt or foster children. Let me remind you, there are over 400,000 children in the foster care system in the United States.
Under the Obama administration, a policy requirement was put in place that any programs funded by Health and Human Services would not be permitted to discriminate based upon sexual orientation or gender identity or expression, along with race, color, ethnicity, sex, etc. What this current administration has done, they've said that for faith-based organizations that work in foster care and adoption, they are permitted to use their judgment to discriminate based on sexual orientation and gender identity as they see fit.
Not only does this limit the number of safe and loving homes that kids in the foster care system could find refuge in, but also by rolling back this policy, it makes it possible for these faith-based organizations to discriminate against children who are LGBT. Kids in foster care are a very vulnerable population as it is. The other thing is that these rollbacks do not only impact foster care and adoption, but they also could impact anything funded by HHS, Health and Human Services. Health and Human Services is in charge of
Medicare, social services, and assistance for low-income families, meal delivery programs for the elderly.
In all of these cases, there's a possibility that people could be discriminated against when federal dollars are going to help these organizations to serve populations in need. So I'm just thinking that maybe if these religious organizations feel that to be in line with their faith, they have to discriminate against a minority, maybe they could get their funding from
Private donors
or
fundraising efforts,
and not from the federal government.
for which all of us are paying in, including those discriminated against minorities.
So I've got a petition link for you. It's below in the description. If you believe in this cause, go ahead and fill it out. It was just one thing I thought of and how you might be able to make a difference in thinking about children and parents on this Father's Day weekend. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for stopping by Activism on the Fly. I'm Tony, if you didn't know. If you did like this video, please hit like. And if you'd like to follow along for more activism related content, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you on this journey.